That was amazing and kind of terrible. Hey, I'm Bob at ILikeToMakeStuff. This is my planer, and it works pretty well, but it definitely has some problems. I asked you all on Instagram about what problems you've had with it so that we can come up with some solutions. So today, we're gonna make this thing better. Let's give it a shot. A couple of weeks ago on Instagram, I asked people if they have this planer or one like it, what are the big problems? What are the things that make it difficult to use? What don't you like about it? There were a lot of great responses, and we're gonna try to deal with a bunch of them, but the two biggest ones I definitely felt myself. One, it's too heavy. It says right here this thing weighs 92 pounds, it's a two-person lift, and so it's just hard to pick up. I use it on the ground, and that makes my back hurt. So the first thing we're gonna do is get this thing off the ground so I don't have to lean down anymore. The other big problem is the dust collection. It's got this port that sticks out the back, and if you put a hose or a bag here, it lays over where the wood comes out. That's a big problem. So on top of picking this thing up off the ground, we're also going to improve the dust collection. That was amazing and kind of terrible. Okay, I did not turn on the dust collector, but the system, I have a system where they're all connected, and the blower that's inside this thing is powerful enough that it was blowing air back through here into the table saw and out where the table saw blade was sitting. And so the good thing is we can use the blower inside this to help evacuate. We don't have to add another dust collector to this thing, but man, that's pretty crazy. And also, if you don't connect the hose well, it does this. Basically all I've done is cut down 6 pieces of plywood to make a box. And this box is completely dependent on the size of a trash can that I got to put on the inside of it. I'll tell you about that in just a little bit. Basically it's really simple cutting, and I'm gonna use pocket holes to put this thing together because it doesn't need to do anything except be tall and strong.
Just like me!
Here we have a basic box. Now the idea here is that we want this to be strong enough for the planer to sit on. Right now it's not, but it will be. And we also want to have an area underneath it that's going to catch the sawdust and the chips that come out of this thing. So I bought a $17 trash can, and it fits in there. We're going to cut a hole right here so that we can blow all of the chips and the sawdust into this area. Then we're going to cover this with a door. But as it stands right now, this is 1/2-inch plywood, the bottom's 1/2-inch plywood, and if we leave it as it is, the weight of the planer is going to end up bending this over time. So before we put the door on, we need to cut a little section of it, probably above this, and then run a stringer along here that's going to support the 4th side to handle the weight. After that, we'll put the door on.
Nice dishwasher you're building there, Bob.
It would leak like crazy. To be clear, I'm just using hinges that I already had on hand. Simple construction, they're going into end grain, which is not great, but theoretically this thing shouldn't have to open and close very often, just when we have to empty the dust. Actually, that's really heavy. I don't remember it being that heavy. It is very heavy.
Maybe you're getting weak.
No! Lift with your back, not with your knees, right? Oh my goodness. Okay, that thing actually is heavy. I forgot how heavy it is because I haven't had to pick it up in a long time, but it is up here. So immediately it's better than it was because I can use the planer without having to bend over at all. So that's great, but it's also in the middle of the shop, stuck on a big block of wood. We need to make it move around. Luckily, I've used these casters a whole bunch of times on a bunch of different cabinets, and they're basically a thing that you put on the side. And so you can push down on this and it will lock the wheel down, which means it will lift this. Basically, you can use this thing to push the wheel down and lift the entire cabinet off the ground. And then when you want it to sit down on the flat bottom, you can lift this thing up, the wheel comes off the ground. These things are awesome and inexpensive, and they can hold like 600 pounds. So I can put these on with it in place. So these things are on. All you gotta do is step on them like that and it engages the wheel. And now once you've got all 4 casters on there, this entire thing moves around very easily. Now, one thing that people often recommend when we use these is that we run a bar in between the 2 casters going from here to here. That way you could push down in the middle and engage them both at the same time, or lift up on the bar and disengage them at the same time. We may do that later on. It's definitely a suggestion, something you may want to do if you use these casters. And before we move on, I do want to make a way to close this so that it will snap closed and stay closed. And then also just add a really simple handle to the outside of it so we can open it. For the kind of latch, the thing that's going to keep it in place, I've got this little magnet and then a metal plate. And you just mount those on the inside and they lock together. Super easy. So there, we have a way to open and close this section. And the whole point of having the door here is so that we can catch the dust down here, which means we need to connect it to the planer. So we need to connect from the output of the planer and make some sort of a hose that comes over here and goes into a hole that we haven't drilled yet into the box to fill up the trash can. This fitting that comes on this thing is a little bit strange. It has a larger outer diameter, a smaller inner diameter for 2 different hoses, and then it also has some pieces in there to stop chips, big chips, from coming through. I thought about replacing this thing completely and actually built a 3D model and 3D printed a little piece that replicates the fit on here, and then I realized that that's kind of unnecessary. What we need to do instead is actually just adapt it. So I've 3D printed a coupler that will fit in here pretty tightly, and then this smaller part will connect to a piece of PVC pipe. So we can get these things fit together. It will come off this direction and then we can route it down. So from this connection, we'll probably put a flexible hose that's going to be able to come over here to the side and then connect to another piece of PVC that's going to be pushed and glued into a hole right here, so that will be kind of centered on the trash can. And if we need to put something else on the inside to divert that air flow down into the can, we can totally do that, but we're going to start by getting all these pieces fit up. I did not think about the fact that this is a 4-inch hose and these are 3-inch pieces. I was just trying to match what was on there. So they don't quite fit together, but if we use the bigger end of this, meaning we add another coupler, then we should be able to fit that around. It's tight enough that we can put a hose clamp on there and it'll hold it in place. But if you're going to do this for yourself, you could avoid all that by just getting a 3-inch piece that has the full size ends. I just happen to get a street elbow, so it has one small end, and that's not ideal here. Cool. So what we can do to actually let that rotate in the space is to cut a little piece of regular PVC pipe that fits over that. Oh, this one doesn't fit over it. I thought I had one that fit over it. So what we can do now that that fits in there is actually use a coupling, which I didn't realize we had, put it on the inside of the box, glue it into place so we leave this little slot where the wood is, so it will be held in place, but it can still spin so that it's kind of free to move with the hose. Let's try it out. So that blew the door open, which is a good thing in that it's a lot of pressure in there, but what you should probably do is cut some holes in this bottom box and then put in like a filter. I've got some filters for my other air cleaner that we can use. So if we cut a big area, embed a filter in that, then we have a way for air to escape. It totally works. I got the filter in there. It still may blow the door open, but we can latch it and at least we have an outlet, so let's give it a shot. We've solved a few problems already. It's off the ground, which helps all of these people, and we kind of fixed the dust collection. We made it at least cleaner and easier to use, and that's gonna help all of these people. Now there was another one that I can't quite fix. Somebody said that they kept getting their arm caught in it. You're kind of on your own for that one, but a lot of other people, like all of these people, said that the in feed and the out feed were a problem. I totally agree with that. These tables are not great. And so what I want to do is try to figure out a way to have a more like planar surface that runs all the way from here all the way out to here and can support longer in feed and out feed. And we've got a really, really simple way to do this. Let me talk specifically for just a second about what the problem is here. When you're running a board through a planer, you need it to be completely flat on the way in, on the way out, so that the cutter head is cutting parallel to this surface. But on this planer, these tables will not stay parallel to this surface because of all these adjustment screws, because you have to take it up and down, and it just causes it not to stay on the same plane. That's gonna mess up your plane on the piece of wood. So all we need to do is take a solid piece of flat material, like melamine, which is also really cheap, by the way, and run it from out here all the way through, all the way to the outside of the other end. But in addition to that, we can also use these things. This is a thing I've had for a long time, and it's basically a roller that's on a stand that you can fold up. So you can use this roller as in feed or out feed from a tool. And in this case, we can either just set these out here to help us move a board through, or we can use them as a place to set the end of the melamine on, creating a longer surface that's gonna stay flat. And so one thing we need to do, on top of getting another one of these, is make a mount to put these on the side. Rather than buying a full sheet of melamine that's super hard to wrestle around, we were able to get just a shelf panel from the store, and it's like $9. It's a little bit too wide, but it's the perfect length, so we're just gonna rip it down and then we can mount it within the planer. Basically, I want that to sit flat against this surface on some sort of a shelf, and then that shelf has to be deep enough for the feet of these things to sit on it as well, and then maybe some sort of a bungee cord or something to kind of hold them against the cabinet. Now we have this, and we can put this on the side of the case, screw it in on this face, glue it, put some glue and screws on the top, and then mount the shelf on top of it. So it's gonna be nice and strong, and won't have to worry about it like folding down. With that, I think the in feed and out feed is at least better. It may not be perfect, but it's gonna be better than just using these tables that are on there. Now we have one other big thing that was mentioned, and I'm not really sure that we can do anything about it, but it's worth a shot. This thing is incredibly loud. Like, it's really, really loud. We're gonna take a suggestion from Adam over at MakerCube and see if we can just put some padding in between these two surfaces and see if that'll help cut down the decibel level. So we have 4 layers of foam. It's about 2 inches, and this is an EVA foam, so it's not super dense. You could use a rubber pad here. You could use even less dense foam. This is just what I could find locally, so we're just gonna try this out, but there are other options for sure. I mean, it didn't hurt. It's helping a little bit. It looked like the highest we had there was 94, but it was also sticking more around 90. So, you know, it's not gonna hurt anything. I don't know that it's really gonna help that much. Still gonna have to wear earmuffs, but at least we tried. Now, the only other thing I did here was to cut down some pieces of aluminum angle, and this is stuff I already had on hand, but it's not very expensive to get. You can cut this aluminum on pretty much any woodworking tool. I did it on the miter saw, and just being able to dress up this little opening right here actually helps quite a bit. These things aren't glued or screwed in, they're just pressure fit. You could use the same stuff to cover these outside corners, or edge band them, or just paint the whole thing if you really care about what it looks like. But for me, this is a shop utility. It doesn't have to be pretty. This thing's finally finished, but I did do a couple of extra things off camera. I added some paint to it just so it's not plywood, and I realized that adding another piece of flexible hose on the inside would actually direct the chips and everything down inside the can rather than just into the box. It may help a little bit, probably won't make a huge difference, but now it's time to actually try this thing out. For me personally, I had two really big problems with this planer. It's way too heavy and the dust collector is just not great, but I think we actually made both of those things better, and I think we actually made a bunch of the stuff better that you suggested on Instagram. Thanks for that, by the way. That's it for this one. Thanks for watching. Now it's time for bloopers. This is my planer, and although it works, it should not open and close very often, just when we need to empty. Empty? Got that filter in there. It still may blur the, blur? Handled, I think. Because it's a handle.